Hey, my name's Tino, and this is my hero's journey in discovering the circle of life framework for success, basically in life and for growth and death and renewal. So let us begin. This has been the culmination of 15 years of work for me to discover what this is, to decode it, and to make that available in a way that is user-friendly and understandable so that you can grasp how the actual structure of life works and the seasons and the cycles and the cause and effect and the feedback loop that that we're all living in, really, that we're all living in on Earth. But before I do that, I just want to share with you a quick story about how I came to discover this for myself and the journey that I've been on to take this life and really figure out one of these what I feel is a gem, really just a deep gem in terms of human understanding and integrating that with nature and basically just raising the consciousness of the planet, but also just really just of the individual and of of ourselves. So we'll start at the beginning, really, and the beginning for me was when I was 18 years old. 18 years old, I was in a situation where I was, drinking and really just getting up to mischief. I was in a pretty bad state, really. My mother had passed away when I was 12, so 6 years later, I'd figured out that I didn't really know much about death, and I really wanted to explore what that meant. And I didn't feel like anyone else could guide me but me. So I was making a lot of decisions on my own and making a lot of mistakes along the way, really. And, part of that was just associating with, the wrong crowd of people, the people that are on the other side of the train tracks, or maybe even just having my own mind tuned in on that frequency and looking for trouble and just trying to push the limits of where, what I could do, what can I do in society, and where's society, where's the threshold where they're going to say, no, you can't do that, you've gone too far. Anyway, that led me into alcohol and some drugs as well, and basically created this pattern in me where I was addicted and, in a pattern of just consuming a lot of alcohol and overdosing on alcohol and weed in particular, or cannabis. And so on one night after a party at a friend's place that we had, or that I was a part of, I actually passed out at the party about 8 o'clock at night, and then I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and everyone was asleep. I missed the whole party. I was just too wasted, trashed out of my brain. So I got up and I was like feeling fresh. It was really nice out there. It was a peaceful, quiet night, and I walked over to my car and got my keys and put them in the ignition and thought that it would be a good test of my abilities, considering the state that I'd just been in, to drive home and to, go home and sleep in my own bed. So that's what I did. And, along the way, I felt like, in control. I was doing just normal driving and it was fine. And no, not really any cars on the road. I was on the highway. But I reached a point when I was driving, which was this examining my life, self-realization. And I was looking at my life going, well, how am I going to make a change in my life? How am I going to really transform, the circumstances of my life and make a big shift, without a lot of effort involved, and what I discovered was, the path, the questioning, the call to adventure. That was the call to adventure. And, we all hear these calls to adventure in various different ways. And since then, I've heard it, in critical points in my life since then. And I've dealt with the call in a different way. This was my 18-year-old self version of dealing with the call and wanting to make a massive change. So I decided while I was driving my car that I would initiate a reset, a hard drive reset of my brain, of my operating system. And that reset, I thought the best opportunity to do that would be to sacrifice my car and to actually then crash into something or drive off a cliff or something like that. So yeah, so I was driving along, I was visualizing, well, how am I going to do this? Do I drive off a cliff? Or there's a cliff up ahead, it's called Mount St. Helena. It overlooks the Byron Bay area. And I thought, well, it's pretty dark and I don't know what's down there. I'd be tumbling down this cliff. And I thought, nah, maybe I won't do that. That's probably not the best idea if I want to live and I want to, contribute to society and actually like find my purpose and passion in life. So alternatively, I saw as a last opportunity of that whole crazy idea. It was a fucking crazy idea to be running through my head at 2 o'clock in the morning, driving alone home at night after a big night at a party. And I saw a semi-trailer parked on the side of the road. It was just over there to the side in a truck stop sort of situation. And I thought this was it. This was my opportunity. I didn't really have to do much. I felt a sense of relief in following my decision-making process, but also as soon as I came to terms with that, I saw the lights of my car reflecting off the back of the semi-trailer, and all I could see was this lit up back semi-trailer. And what I did was pretty much what I did next was what saved my life, which was I veered a little bit to the side so that I wouldn't hit it like smack on. I just sort of hit it with the half of the car, so the whole passenger side was crumpled and messed up, and I had this little cocoon, and basically as a result of that, I did get the reset that I wanted. And after spending, I think it was a week in a coma, and I have acquired some brain injuries from this experience. And this part of this journey has like been to figure it out and heal and to optimize myself and to optimize my brain functioning and short-term memory and stuff like that, connecting the dots. So it's really helped me to like use this muscle, and it's been this major focus of my life because it's something that I had to rebuild from scratch. And during my stay in the hospital in this coma state, I saw, I was in a room. It was a white light room, and I was, it's that place that's in between worlds. It's like, in the Matrix when he's stuck in the train station, and he can't run through the Matrix. He's like the wizard, and he's like the chosen one, Neo, and he can't get out of this white room. Mind you, he's rescued, but when I was in this place, I was being coached, I was being mentored. There was another voice, another guiding sort of awareness in that place, and that awareness helped me to understand, a little bit more about what life was all about, and helped me to understand that if I was going to come back into my body and and rejoin the life that I had begun for 18 years, that I would have to figure out what the one thing that only I could do on Earth would be. One thing that was my thing and that only I could do. No one else could do it because it was me. That's what I had to do. So I had to figure out what that one thing was, and I took my time, and I took all the time that I had, really, and I figured it out. I actually thought about, well, some people understand things, throughout time, throughout history, there's philosophy and there's philosophers, and they've come to understand things a certain way, the unified structure of the reality, or they've come to understand, these deeper implications and aspects of life. And that's something that I was looking for. That's what I wanted to find. And as a result, my why for coming back was, I'm translating my why into language, because I didn't know what it meant back then. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I was looking for the highest forms of knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. in that order. And that's what I've come to discover. And then it's through the discovery of that and the integration of this sequence of steps that I've also been able to decode this crop circle. And fast forward 10 years after that, it took me 10 years to then go on a sailing trip where I actually then tested out that method, that structure, the 3-step method of, input, processing, and output. And I tested it out on a subject that I didn't really know much about, which was ocean sailing and navigating by the sea. And, I didn't use the stars to navigate, but, I had to fix certain aspects of my yacht, and I had to then learn how to sail on my own. And I used the 3-step method of, taking the yacht apart in a way where I'd take this bit apart and I'd figure out, well, what is this? Is it working currently? And how does it work? And then if it's not working, how do I fix it? And then if I can fix it, and then retest it. It's a scientific method, basically. Test if it's working again, make sure it's working, and then understand every little function, every element of the boat, so that I could sail it back home. And after that journey, I was actually just integrating that whole experience, the whole sailing experience, which took about 4 months to do. And that's another example of a call to adventure. So I'm going to be referring to the call to adventure quite a lot during this discussion, or this unraveling of the circle of life, because the call to adventure is a critical aspect of your life and of my life, and it's what helps us to actually ask the bigger questions of why. Why are we doing what we're doing? And why are we here? And what's the meaning of life? And from those questions, we receive a call to an adventure to discover what it is that we're looking for. And that takes us on a journey. And that journey is symbolically represented by a circle. And it's been coined the hero's journey by Joseph Campbell. And the hero's journey is the archetypal journey of our life. And the circle of life is a single hero's journey, really, from birth, until we grow up and we grow old and then we die again. That's the hero's journey of our life. That's the hero's journey of being on Earth. And within that one journey, there are many, many other journeys of self-discovery, of professional discovery, of production, of love and relationships and community and connection and growth, and everything. You could boil it down to some sort of a call and going into an unknown situation and pushing your own limits and discovering transformation on the back of that, and growth, and new opportunities, really, and new gifts to share, or new gifts to experience for yourself. And that's really we're beginning to introduce what the circle of life is. And it's by taking that circle and integrating that with what I was sent by, so take that circle and integrate that with the crop circle image that I was sent. That I discovered, oh my God, this is the circle of life. Like, this actually is a depiction of all the seasons of life. And the reason why I discovered this was because I was asking myself another question. I was figuring out, at the time, I was actually So going back to my other story, I just finished a sailing trip. I'd done 1,600 nautical miles, sailed home on my own, and well, I had my brother with me as well. And then as a result of that, I was sleeping on my brother's couch, part-time living on the boat. And during that time, we were playing a bunch of video games, Grand Theft Auto 5 or something like that at the time it was, and I was immersed in this video game for so long because I was like, I discovered this virtual reality world, Grand Theft Auto, where you can run around and you have the freedom to do whatever you want, and and there's this aspect of free will in that game where you can walk around and I guess there is a point to the game. There's actually like a thing you got to do. You got to make money and you got to game all the hoes and pimps and kill a bunch of bad guys and good guys or something like that. But I actually was just roaming. I was just a free spirit in the game, just running around, stealing cars, getting into mischief, reliving my past. Really, but on extreme terms with $1 million budget, because we had the cheat codes. So, get helicopters and blah, blah, blah. Like explore this island, because essentially that's what it was, an island, and push the limits of driving fast cars and flying around in planes and choppers and all that sort of stuff. And it was during this immersion process that I stepped outside. I had to get a breath of fresh air because it was so, like, overwhelming to just be mowing down digital blips on the screen with a Gatling gun. Overwhelmingly destructive. So I had to take a break. I walked outside onto the deck at my brother's place at the time. And I saw, our backyard, simple backyard, suburban Byron Bay backyard. We could see the beach. It was amazing, really. Could see the ocean, see the treetops, and then you see levels of shrubbery down below. And in the treetops, you could see all the birds flying around. Different types of birds doing their different things, all the way down to the ground floor where you see like bush turkeys and other birds doing their thing, scratching, and I saw a head honcho bush turkey chasing the other bush turkeys. So it was like this hierarchy, a pecking order. There was a system, an ecological system here at work. It was like very dynamic and alive and, so intelligent. And I thought to myself, wouldn't it be amazing to play a video game that was the life of, a creature, and in this video game have, coded into it, free will, and the laws of cause and effect, or karma, coded into the video game. So as you're a worm, you grow up and you start to like level up from worm to like caterpillar to like butterfly to like bird to marsupial to whatever the hierarchy of animal life is. I didn't pin that down, but I figured out that one of the the problem to this whole thing was like, how do you track the cause and effect relationship of your character in a video game through all the interactions that you have in the video game, and so that you can track the cause and the effect of what you do. Whether you do something good or something bad, you can track the cause and the effect. And I was like trying to figure out, well, how do you code that into a video game? Like, how do you code karma into a video game? Cause and effect in such a way that it mimics life, and mimics life beyond the single life of the worm into the next life of the caterpillar, and then the next life of the bird, so that your karmic journey it just continues through all these lives, and it's just like depending on what you do in the game and how you respond to situations and circumstances. That's what determines, like who you level up to. And this is like some of the, these are all sort of ancient religious karmic sort of guilt trip things of don't do this or you'll end up being a bloody blade of grass or something like that. So, I was trying to turn that into a video game basically to, I guess give my, my children, my future children, an alternative to Grand Theft Auto, which I thought was fun. But if you're not like, of mature mind, and I don't know if I'm fully of mature mind, but if you're not, it's just not suitable for everyone because it gives you a skewed representation of reality, and it doesn't actually depict the natural order of things, the natural life, and and it's just this very disconnected game. So just trying to create a super connected game that is actually an educational resource to understand the world around us. And on the back of that, I just recently purchased some smart drugs, some modafinil, and I'd just taken my first smart drug, and then I got sent, been on the bulletproof coffee diet and in ketosis for already a couple of years, so everything was pretty finely tuned and humming along nicely. And just going down to my favorite coffee shop in Byron Bay, and I got a text message with a photo, just a photo from a friend, and this text message, this photo was a crop circle image, and it was just random, out of the blue. Someone was tuning into me, someone very special was tuning into me, what I was going through, and they sent me a random image, and I'm so grateful that they did, because this image then allowed me to decode how we could, code into a video game karma, cause and effect, and the feedback loop of what we do and how that plays out in our lives, in the future, in this life, in the next life, and beyond. And I don't know if you believe in any of that stuff. That's not even what we're going to be talking about. We're not talking about belief. We're just going to be decoding how this structure works, how the framework of the circle of life works. So I took this crop circle, and I'm going to be putting it up on the screen here right now. I took the crop circle, and immediately I saw, like, wow, there's this deep relationship here between the circles, between the journeys. You consider that outer circle is a big hero's journey of our whole life. From when we're born to when we die. That's how I decode it. It's like, oh, this is one life in a video game from beginning to end. And in that one life, there's all these different stages you have to go through. You have to go through stages of growth and of development. And those stages are broken up into 4 different circles within that one circle. And those 4 circles represent the seasons of life. The seasons of life being beginning with spring after we are born. Everything is ripe, fertile, and there's a new growth everywhere. And it's an abundance of light coming through and energy. And, and then you start to grow up. You pass your adolescence, and you start to lean into adulthood, and then the summer of your life begins, and that's really when you start to shine, who you are, and you start to discover what you're here to do, and you have enough understanding about where you are to actually steer and navigate your own way through life. Beyond summer, obviously, we step into autumn now, and we start retreating back to, back to the source, really, is this sort of like an expansion and then the contraction side of things. So the circle, the seasons represent, the growth, expansion, and then the contraction back into a death, whether it's physical death of our bodies or whether it's smaller deaths of our personality, or of our life circumstances and situations. Autumn represents the beginning of the fruits of the previous seasons being ripe, being in abundance, and we get to appreciate those, but we also get to experience a coming back to source, or the beginning of that trend of coming back to source. When we pass the peak of our lives, we have to then return. We have to, a little bit midlife crisis goes. That's what we talk. That's how it's referenced in the in our modern age of, it's a midlife crisis, when it's actually just a natural thing you do because you're more looking internally and you're more appreciating different things in your life as a result of the season of growth that you're in, until eventually you find yourself in winter and you're sharing and you're more interested in wisdom and philosophy and your inner world, and finding center, finding peace, or living from that, and really just sharing that with the world. But that's the sort of the overview of the circle of life, is that we have these 4 seasons. But now we're gonna, that's a layer of this crop circle image. Now if we want to decode it a little bit more, if we want to code it into a video game, or if we want to decode it and integrate that into our lives a little bit more, we have to go a little deeper, dive a little deeper into the circle. And, because we all know how the seasons, one follows the other, spring, summer, autumn, winter. It just does that until the end of time, pretty much. So let's go a little deeper into this crop circle image, and let's have a little look at what's underneath the hood of this, because there's a couple of circles on the outside, and that's this polarity that we're dancing around constantly between light and dark, or between the sun and the moon. And then so we've got that to dive into as well, and then we've got the interactions between the seasons. So when we have the season of spring and how it interacts with all the other seasons, now we can start to see that we can input things into the center core point of our life. If we think of this circle as our life, and the center point of the circle is is our purpose, is our passion, is your core. That's what people talk about when they talk about the core of their lives. And so we have to, every time we do something, whether it's helping Uma Elke over across the road, or we do something nice to someone else, or we play Grand Theft Auto for 3 years and don't leave our room, we are leaving a trail of cause and effect, or the effects of these actions into the future seasons of our lives. And it begins with everything we do, and it begins really from day one. And the feedback loop, we can really understand how this works when we look at how the 4 circles overlap. So we've got 3 levels of input. We've got spring inputs into summer, and then it also inputs into autumn, and then it also eventually inputs into winter before it crosses the event horizon, the threshold of our center point of our lives, which is the primary sort of this is now. And then as a result of that, now we start to receive the actual outputs of previous seeds that we've been planting. So we receive the output of spring, and then summer, and then autumn again, into the back of, into the reality of who we are right now on the surface level of our lives. So this really helps us to understand the small things in life, the tiny little things that we think have no consequence. But if we have this image or this understanding in our mind's eye, we can then take account for even the smallest things that we think, oh, well, that's not consequential, I don't need to worry about that, I'm just going to flick my cigarette butt out the window and no one saw me. But you can start to see that everything has an equal and opposite reaction. And this circle is a way to actually track the equal and opposite reactions of the causes that we initiate in our lives. The Circle of Life framework is a self-discovery tool to help you discover and cultivate who you came here, down on earth, up on earth, whatever you want to call it, who you came to earth to be, and why you're the only one that can do that one thing, because it's your journey, and this is your gift, and this is your life, and it's taking that back, integrating that into yourself, and actually then living that, sharing that with the world, and experiencing the freedom of being on point with who you are meant to be. I guess that's the introduction to the Circle of Life, and what that means. The rest of the crop circle here is there's a strange series of circles in the middle that kind of look like little S's. These are aspects that we're going to go deeper into in the course, where we have more time, we have more focus on actually decoding the full crop circle, really, because the double S in the center, it means it represents you being in flow. This is your flow state, and finding your flow state and being one with your whole journey, with who you are. That's what this represents. This training program represents being at one. It's a journey to find yourself, to find your calling, and to cultivate your passions, your gifts and offerings, to then be in resonance with all of life, and as a result, be the highest form of yourself that you can be. That's what we're here to do. Anyway, comment below, living life to its fullest, and I'll send you a message, and we can go from there, and we can begin the process of actually discovering what it means to be a new age hero with the Circle of Life.